It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to the program. It is County-Wide. I'm Brad Miller. Happy New Year, one and all. And I want to welcome into studio today a first-time guest on County-Wide. Brian Watson is a special agent with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. He's also a public information officer, speaking to folks in the media and the public, and he is here to do that today. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year to you, Brad.
Thanks for coming in and visiting us. You're coming up from Tucson today. You're doing some things in our neck of the woods, and I got to just tell you right off the bat, when I saw your email introducing yourself, I thought, IRS, oh my God, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, I get that all the time.
I'll bet you do.
That's why I try not to call people, because if you try calling someone out of the blue, they're going to think, no way. So I try to contact people. If it's a witness, through a letter. If it's someone through a radio station or a TV station, I'll try email.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Hit it right on the head. There's, that's an acronym, IRS, FBI, everybody knows. A lot of us are thinking about taxes and taxman, and that's where our mind goes. But the IRS, the agency itself, is much more than that, and you're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to do two parts. So today's program, and then again on our next episode, if you will, going to talk a little more specifically in that one about scams. You deal with that an awful lot. The enforcement arm of the IRS works with scams, and there's always people trying to relieve us of our money. We'll get into that a little more deeply. But in this piece, our first piece, I want to talk a bit about what the IRS is and what it isn't. I've got to ask you, in the news, it's been floating around now, oh my gosh, they're hiring hundreds of thousands of agents or something, and people believe that there's something happening. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, so I've heard that 87,000 figure way too much. And what I can tell you, there's a lot of really bad reporting out there. A lot of people just repeating things over and over that may not necessarily be true. One of them is like, we're going to have 87,000 new armed IRS agents. Yeah. Sometimes the word armed in there, sometimes it's not. The point is, our funding has been very hit and miss over the last, say, 10 years. Mm-hmm. So there's been many years where the IRS has not hired at all. And as a recruiter for my agency, IRS Criminal Investigation, it's been very frustrating because I have to keep telling candidates, well, someday we will hire when we have money. Well, then now they're having a lot of money. The hiring process with the government is very slow. And for instance, my agency, at one point, IRS-CI, we had 3,500 special agents in the late 1990s. Okay. We're down to 2,100 right now. Okay. So even if we hired 300, our max, we have to go through our academy in Brunswick, Georgia, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Okay. We struggle to get 200 to 300 people hired a year when we are hiring. But then here's the problem. We lose 150 to 175 in retirement every year. So it's going to take 10, 15 years to get back to that 3,000 figure where we'd like to be. There's plenty of work for us. There's plenty of cases. But, a lot of the amount of people that are going to be hired, a lot of them are going into customer service. A lot of them are processing returns. And, our audit rate is actually extremely low from where it used to be. Back in the day, the audit rate was, right now the audit rate is 0.4%. Okay. And that's for all, IRS Civil that does the audits. Doubling the budget, it would get up to 0.8%. We're still going to be below the 0.9% from 2010. Okay. So everyone out there, I don't want them to worry like the IRS is going to be crazy. It's a slow process to get back to where we were. Like I said, there's plenty of work out there. I see a lot of people taking advantage by stealing from the government one way or another. Yeah. So as an honest tax-paying citizen, I kind of want to see the audit rate to get up a little higher. As a special agent, I want more colleagues because there's plenty of work for us to do. Right.
Well, and I think across many branches of government, in the military, they're having recruitment troubles, I think, in all branches. So it's not kind of this nefarious thing that you can read a headline and get shocked and, oh my gosh, they're coming to take everything I have. But I got to say, let me do a little devil's advocate on you as a citizen and a taxpayer. Hey, if you can only audit half as many people as you could once the numbers, your employment is back up to full ranks, I'm not going to worry about that. Why should I? Why should I care if Peter, Paul, and Henry get away with adding a few zeros or things like that? Why does it bother me?
Well, because then you're going to end up paying more in the long run.
Yeah.
For instance, I like the analogy of going out to dinner. 5 of you go out to dinner, and you got that one friend who like disappears when the check comes. So instead of splitting it 5 ways, it's now split 4 ways, and you're gonna have to pay more. And then when people don't feel like it's a good system and it's not fair, then it encourages more people to cheat. And then that's the thing. Right now, I mean, you see a lot of law enforcement agencies are down in terms of number.
Sure.
I see a lot more speeding going on right now.
Yeah.
And that happened a lot during the pandemic. A lot less police out there, a lot more people speeding, a lot more accidents. So when people know there's less, let's say, DPS out on I-17, people are going to speed more. It's just basic deterrence.
Right.
So that's the way I look at it.
It's a fair share kind of thing. If you look at that big picture in the long term, clearly that it serves all of our best interests if everybody's playing by the same rules.
Right. And most people I know, the vast majority of people I know, no one likes paying taxes. I don't like paying sales tax. I don't like paying my electric bill. I mean, there are a lot of things I don't like to pay. I mean, but it's part of life. But most people are honest and ethical and know taxes are part of life. My former mother-in-law, she's deceased now, she was worried that she didn't have every single canceled check, that like a $25 check to a charity. She was worried the IRS is going to come knock on her door and, get her in big trouble. But most people just pay their taxes and they just don't want to deal with the IRS. That's normal. I don't want to deal with the IRS.
Right. Let's get into that then. What does kind of trigger? We hear about audits, and that can be a routine kind of a thing, or it can be because there's been some red flag in perhaps paperwork somewhere.
Right.
What is going to typically trigger an audit? And let's use, I don't know if it's easier to kind of use individual taxpayers, corporate, or however you want to help describe it. But what's the difference between a regular audit that many of us have been through, and what would be a finding in that audit, say, that would become an investigation? What's the difference?
Okay, so most audits, a lot of them there's some that are random. They're complete random, just to catch someone who's not being caught in one of the different programs. A lot of them, it's by matching. For instance, you receive a W-2 from the radio broadcasting company. Yeah. That W-2 goes to you, but the W-2 also goes to the IRS. So if it doesn't match up, that's going to cause an inquiry. That's not an audit. That's just going to be a correspondence letter. Hey, Brad, we're missing this, and then you get it straightened out. But then the IRS we have limited resources at the IRS. Obviously, I mentioned the audit rate of 0.4%. Everybody can't be audited. Mm-hmm. So you have to go where there's the most potential to bring money in, most potential for fraud. So that's going to be not on your W-2 wage earner. That's going to be someone who owns, say, a Schedule C business or a corporation, like C Corp, S Corp, something like that, partnership, because you can fudge things there. You can underreport the income. You can overstate the expenses. So those are things that cause the audit. There's the IRS can run numbers and on just all tax returns are entered into a system, and they're given a score, and they're looking for the highest potential of fraud, and then that's where an audit could be triggered and go from there. Now, for an audit to come over across the hall to where I am in criminal investigation, it's intent. They're looking for things like hidden bank accounts, overseas transactions, things that are not true. Things that not being honest, not being forthright about stuff. So it's like you keep peeling a layer of the onions and keep finding more and more things, then that would get referred over to us.
Can you give us a specific? I don't know if you can do that here on our time. Let's do this. Let's take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, because our time is going to fly by us here today, this is very interesting to me and I think to our listeners as well. But I'd like to talk maybe about a specific case that through the news or whatever we may be familiar with and follow along how that kind of went. Our guest today on Countywide is Brian Watson. Brian is a special agent in the criminal investigation branch of the Internal Revenue Service, working out of the Phoenix and Tucson areas primarily, visiting us in Yavapai County. We'll take a short break. Countywide is back after this.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Service for over 25 years and continues to serve the communities in northern Arizona. Jackson Hewitt is here to help you file your personal taxes. As laws and situations change, your local Jackson Hewitt Tax Service professional stays updated to serve you. Drop off or make an in-person appointment. In Flagstaff, call 213-8626. That's 213-8626. That's 213-8626.
The award-winning experts at Verde Solar Services offer the trusted carrier products that help you customize a solution to fit your budget. Verde Solar is a family-owned business serving the Verde Valley for 38 years with the carrier products you can rely on. Carrier AC systems are trusted to bring energy-efficient, quiet, consistent comfort. Call 928-567-5315 for a free assessment of your AC and air quality needs. Verde Solar Services, online at verdesolaire.com, a factory-authorized carrier dealer.
Don't let concerns about today's events derail your long-term financial strategy. Hi, I'm Edward Jones Financial Advisor, Matthias Sandoval, and I'm here to help. We can work together to understand the impact of these events and make sure your goals are top of mind. While you can't control the market volatility, we'll focus on what you can control. We can connect in several virtual ways. Start by giving me a call at 634-1044.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Again, it is Countywide. I'm Brad Miller. Brian Watson is with the Internal Revenue Service, the Criminal Investigation Branch, and talking today about, in our first of two programs, we're going to do another one, and we'll talk more about scams and how they can affect all of us, taxpayers and citizens. Today, we're talking about kind of enforcement, and we were going to get to, Brian, I think, a specific case that will kind of illustrate where things can go. It may start with an audit, end up a criminal investigation, and perhaps, even a prosecution?
Absolutely. I mean, IRS criminal investigation, we are the law enforcement part of IRS, and we don't do audits. We don't collect money. We actually conduct criminal investigations, and then at some point, we either close the case or we recommend prosecution, and it goes through the federal courts. Okay. And we have about a 90% conviction rate. I've gone to trial 3 times, but there's some people who never go to trial just because the evidence is usually pretty overwhelming. And people can go to jail for tax evasion.
It seems like with the paper trails that money leaves, a lot of times when you see smoke, you're going to find fire.
Yes, and they're still very complicated.
Sure.
They can take years to investigate. There's a lot of bank records. It's not a quick fix, like, being a police officer and going arrest somebody and then moving on to the next case.
Yeah.
It takes a long time,
You bet.
a lot of work, but when presented with the evidence, it's a lot more compelling than, say, witness testimony, which is notoriously kind of witness testimony is not very good.
Sure.
It's a he said, she said. But when we have 30 bank accounts and it shows where the money's going and we have it traced out and we can show they only reported this much money, that's where most criminal or defendants will take a guilty plea.
Sure. And a lot of times it seems like, we hear about like white collar crime, and to a lot of us, we'll hear about your agency being involved in it, and then maybe the FBI being involved in it. Well, it becomes so complicated, it's hard to even follow that in the nightly news. So I can understand how kind of intricate and deep it can get to go in and find out what's going wrong and who and why and all of that. Do you have a specific case that you can recollect?
So there's a case out of Phoenix. A business owner was sentenced in October. His name was Sun Wan Lee. He was sentenced to 24 months in prison for tax evasion, so basically 2 years. He ended up paying his restitution in full prior to sentencing of $3.6 million.
He's got that kind of cash.
Yeah, well, and even by paying all the money, and then he also paid penalties and interest on that too. It was actually closer to $7 or $8 million. He basically owned and operated a chain of clothing stores in around Phoenix and Tucson. They were called BBB Fashion. So if you're ever in those areas, you might see it. He basically underreported his income by telling his employees to give him any cash he received from his customers, and he kept a second set of books. So a second set of books.
Like in the movies.
Yeah, well, it's now sometimes it's paper, sometimes it's a spreadsheet on Excel or something like that. And they do that that way he could track the true income and true expenses.
Gotcha.
So then I always ask people, well, why would he keep that second set of books? Because let's say we find it at a search warrant.
Right.
That doesn't bode too well for him. But the reason why they do it is, let's say Mr. Lee, if he was going to sell that business someday, if he showed someone his true tax returns, they might be a little underwhelmed.
He can inflate.
But if he can produce an accurate second set of books, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm willing to pay a lot more for that business.
Gotcha. Let me guess. An employee rolled on him, and that's how you got onto him.
I don't know. That's the problem is with my job is I have to kind of separate myself from the thing. Now, one of his underlings at the company was also charged, and that person ended up getting probation. Sometimes part of that probation is to cooperate. Every case is different, but that's the one question most reporters always ask is, how did you get this case? And sometimes it's in the public record, sometimes it's not. So I have, as a PIO, I'm very careful not to talk to the case agents too much because I have to stick to what's in the public record.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to inadvertently say something that shouldn't kind of be out there. We understand that.
I don't want to be sued. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I've been a PIO for 17 years, and we are allowed and we are aggressive. We go out there and we want to tell the public about these criminal cases to deter others from doing it.
Sure.
But we also want to assure the honest taxpayers that they're doing the right thing. Let's say you're a business, like a restaurant owner, and, restaurants are tough businesses. The profit margin is razor thin at times. And, some restaurants pay employees under the table with cash. Mm-hmm. But the good ones, the honest ones, pay everyone through the payroll system, do all the employment taxes. And we want someone like that to know they're doing the right thing. It may hurt sometimes. You may not get to go on vacation every year, and it's tough, but we want them to know that they're doing the right thing. And then you know what I found in my career is if you pay all your taxes and do things right, you sleep better at night.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Something to be said for peace of mind. Let's boil it down, though, from that level down to those employers or employees. If you are working in a restaurant and they only want to pay you cash, not tips, but your salary, your wage, what do I do? Do I walk away from that? I need the job. I need the money. A lot of us have found ourselves in situations like that, especially when we're young and struggling and starting. What's your advice, Mr. IRS agent?
Yeah, I mean, especially right now, everyone's hiring. So at least in this economy, you can find a job somewhere else. But no, we encourage people to reach out to us with information. Yeah. Did you know we actually pay for original information? So if, let's say, you produce information on somebody that that's cheating the government, we will actually pay you a percentage of the amount collected. So let's say the government, I had a case where a lady ended up getting a check for over $100,000 because without her, we would not have known about the case.
No kidding. And that amount was based on percentage of what was?
Percentage. You can get up to, it's about anywhere from 15 to 30%. She probably got the 30%.
Wow.
But here's the catch. There's always a catch, Brad. We gave her that $100,000, but what did we also give with her along with that check? We gave her a 1099. Okay. Basically saying, you received this money, it's still income. So she ended up,
tear that check in about a 70-30 and hand over the 70.
Right. But hey, she got to keep most of it. But yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. That's something I learned back in college.
All right, fair enough. She was probably very happy to pay that piece.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is, too, she did the right thing.
That's funny.
She did the right thing because that person was definitely cheating on their taxes. And it's like we said at the beginning, when you cheat on the taxes, you're cheating on everybody.
Yeah. Well, that analogy you gave at the beginning of the show, 5 people, only 4 pay for dinner, and there you go. Somebody gets off and the rest of you pay more. It works that way on a big scale. We need to take another short break. When we come back, we'll kind of wrap up. This is just flying by. In some of the notes that you sent me ahead of time, you said you could tell a story about a hidden room you found. I got to hear that, and I think our listeners will want to hear it as well. Fun conversation, interesting today. Brian Watson is with the Internal Revenue Service, a criminal investigation officer with them. We'll break, and Countywide is back right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones Financial Advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley for 38 years, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust, designed, engineered, and built in the USA. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates on systems that are quiet and affordable. Verde Solaire is locally owned since 1983 and available for all your heating, air conditioning, and plumbing needs. Call 928-567-5315. Visit them online at verdisolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Taxes, taxes, taxes.
It's that time again. This is Lewis with Rice Accounting Jackson Hewitt Tax Service. We don't sell cars, we don't do hair or wait tables. We do taxes. At Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, we talk taxes and we prepare taxes. Open year-round for tax filings. Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, located throughout northern Arizona. For over 20 years, our local preparers have helped neighbors pay their fair share and no more.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service in the Tri-Cities at 772-7872. That's 772-7872.
Welcome back to the program. It is Countywide, and this is the first of two Countywide programs we'll do with Brian Watson, Special Agent with the Internal Revenue Service. Our second show will be later in the week, and that'll feature more about scams and different ways that naughty people try to relieve good people of their money. So we'll talk at length about that in our next program. All right, you sent me some notes prior to today's conversation, and one was about a hidden room found during a search warrant. I got to hear this.
Yeah, so let's go back to 1999.
Okay.
You remember the whole Y2K thing was going on, and we were, worried that all the lights and the power were going to go out. We were doing a search warrant, and so I refer to this story as the Y2K room.
Okay.
Executing a search warrant for financial records at someone's house in California. Okay. And he happened to be a contractor, so it was a big house. He built his own house.
Gotcha.
And we actually, during the search warrant, we actually had a few agents dedicated to look for wall safes, hidden compartments in the house, anything where money might be hidden.
You've seen this before.
Well, and this guy was a non-filer, but bringing in a lot of cash. So he wasn't depositing the cash at the bank, so we knew he probably had it at his house. The day's going on, no one's finding anything. And we're like, where is this guy keeping his money? Well, near kind of well into the warrant, there's a laundry room, kind of like a long laundry room with some cabinets. And at the end of the laundry room was a refrigerator cut into a little alcove in the wall.
Okay.
He started shining his flashlight behind the refrigerator and noticed there was some dead space behind the refrigerator. He's like, what's going on? Well, he started investigating and figured out the refrigerator was on some railroad tracks. It had wheels on it with some railroad tracks hooked up to a garage door opener, where you hit the garage door opener and the refrigerator went into this back alcove recess area.
Like the bat cave.
Like the bat. That's a perfect example. It's like a bat cave. And so we found it. We went back there, and this guy had a treasure trove of stuff. He had a lot of very expensive guns. He had coins, gold, things like that. But he had a bag of cash. I think it was probably $300,000 or $400,000 in cash.
Oh my!
And I remember just picking it up because I've never held that much cash in my life. But we refer to that as the Y2K room, and that's a perfect example of what we're dealing with at IRS Criminal Investigation. That he was holding that money on purpose, not depositing it, and he had unreported income. I don't know how that case ended up figuring out. It wasn't my case. It was someone else's case. But I love to tell that story because those are the kind of things we encounter on our search warrants.
Kind of an exaggerated example to the nth degree of what can happen much more commonly.
Yeah, but to have to spend the time to put a refrigerator on some railroad tracks and wheels and a garage door opener is pretty ingenious.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I wish I'd taken some pictures of it. But back then, I don't even know if I had a dedicated cell phone, and we certainly didn't have phones or cameras on them. So someone probably took some pictures. Our evidence custodian probably took some pictures. Yep.
In 90 seconds, can you tell me how it was not Elliot Ness that caught Al Capone?
Yeah, so it's, Elliot Ness gets all the credit, and for years it was not... We couldn't tell the story to get it right because everything was considered grand jury information.
Gotcha.
So the case, actually, there's a lot of stuff on irs.gov. We have a Freedom of Information Act, like a reading room.
Okay.
If you Google irs.gov, go to Elliot or Al Capone. It was actually a guy named Elmer Irie and Frank Wilson. And there's all kinds of typed documents that talk about the Capone investigation, including the special agent report. And you'll realize Elliot Ness is not listed in there at all. He basically was like an ATF agent. But remember, Al Capone went down for tax charges.
You bet.
So yes, Elmer Irie, Frank Wilson, go to irs.gov and check it out.
Kevin Costner should play them in a movie.
Exactly. Someday they're going to get their due. So I've been trying to give Elmer and Frank their due as a PIO.
Brought down Scarface. All right. Thank you, Brian Watson. A terrific show. A lot of interesting things. Generally speaking, is there a website if folks, especially in our next show, we're going to talk about scams, but if you're afraid of those or just want to be a little bit leery and educate yourself, can I go? Is there a website, or what's the best way to kind of do that?
So I would say irs.gov has a lot of information on there, things to look out for. But I would also refer people to FBI. They have a lot of great stuff on their website as well.
Okay, sounds good. Our guest, Brian Watson. We'll talk with Brian again on our next show, and we're going to focus on scams. Too much of that in the news, and we'll see if we can help prevent such trouble in 2023. I'm Brad Miller. It's Countywide, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.